Hi, my name is Srila Chatterjee, and for a lot of people who know me, they think I go to sleep with one set of jewelry and wake up and put on another set before I do anything else. So jewelry plays a huge part in my life. I love it. The thing is that my jewelry goes from junk and garbage to anything. And in the last few weeks, since we've been doing this Art Deco show, getting into Art Deco jewelry has been an absolute joy. And studying about it and learning about it has been quite incredible, because I think there's more in the whole Art Deco period that I love than anyone else. I mean, if I could live again, I'd want to be born in the 20s so that I could live that whole life. So the 1920s, or straight after the devastations of World War I, and the whole Art Deco movement really was this intoxicating whirlwind of a time where there were giant leaps in innovation. And what blew into everybody's spirits were things like just a newness, an innovation that didn't exist before, and that translated into a period widely remembered for its cocktail sipping, fringe shaking flappers, the best jazz in the world, and a very great Gatsby lifestyle. And the flamboyant and dazzling, bold idea of Art Deco and the jewelry that it created perfectly reflects an era that only wanted to go forward, never go back. It's also known for styles of Art Deco jewelry that you'll see come back, have stayed, and are adapted even today. What changed the most, and this is Coco Chanel, was the attitude and the life and the whole being of women. Women were suddenly no longer just objects. Women were now actually looking after businesses, running offices, doing all the things their wartime heroes couldn't do. And they transformed from the relative formality and restriction of the earlier Edwardian era into the fun, elegant, and practical styles of what came after. So corsets disappeared, hemlines grew shorter, and freedom and a sense of fun was reflected in this new, exciting jewelry style. The jewelry of Art Deco has specific cutting-edge innovations, and those innovations are very specific, and I want to just point them out to you. The first was the use of platinum. Following the war, platinum was back in play, and they also used a lesser and a less expensive material, very similar, called osmium or plator or platinum. And what this platinum did was, unlike gold, it was much harder. So as a result, they could reset jewelry. It no longer had to be where the gold had to hold the whole stone, but you had this very hard metal that allowed the stone to take over, and you could actually forget about the metal at all if you wanted to. That led to invisible settings. So you see nothing between these blue stones. This was actually first done by Van Cleef & Arpels, and it was called a mystery setting. And this was really what allowed gems to be mounted in such a way that no metal was possible. And then gem cutting became so important. They developed ways to cut and shape gems in very new and exciting forms, and so much of it was like a mosaic. So this mosaic idea, which we actually know a lot of now, came straight after the First World War in this whole Art Deco way of thinking. A very important beginning was the use of lacquer. Lacquer until then had been very expensive. Enameling had been very expensive. And I love this story. The reason why lacquer started being used in Art Deco jewelry a lot was because the Chinese workers who had been lacquering airplane propellers for the war now took their skill to the jewelry industry. So even then the Chinese found ways to make things cheaper. And that's how you get it a lot in Art Deco jewelry. Synthetic materials. So for the first time, bakelite became widely used, and they imitated, the bakelite was used to imitate gemstones, amber, wood, bone, and anything. So it just made jewelry far more about the design than about the preciousness, which also led to cultured pearls. And cultured or cultivated pearls were really when pearl-bearing oysters were implanted with mother-of-pearl beads. And so you got these. So you could use a profusion of them. I mean, that whole period of these long pearls of Coco Chanel came from this. And then a big thing which we all know from the previous conversations, geometric design. How much the geometrics was so important, what a role they played, and everything visual became about the geometrics. And cubism was often used to describe jewelry of this era because of the angles, geometric lines, and the figurative representations that they employed. And another very big important thing was the international influence that came in. This is a fantastic photograph of Cartier sitting amongst karigars, I presume somewhere in Rajasthan maybe. And the whole jewelry world opened up to the Far East, to India. So you see motifs like this, colorful materials came in like lapis lazuli, turquoise, agate, which were not used before. And very importantly, the whole Egyptian dynamic came in. The Egyptian revival stands out in the whole Art Deco period. New archaeological discoveries, especially Tutankhamun's tomb, had a huge impact. And that's where lapis lazuli, gold, cornelian, turquoise, they all came inspired by the pharaohs. Lotus blossoms, scarabs, all kinds of things. And the Indian influence, which I think made some of the most beautiful jewelry. I just wanted to show a couple of pictures of that. And that is Holkar. And that incredible piece on the side was made for him by Cartier and was used at the top of his, not on the turban. I mean, the photograph that I saw, it was on his jacket. So he probably adapted it. So this led to, very interestingly, two schools of design for Art Deco jewelry. And this is, it's theoretical, but it's, when you think about it, it's pretty obvious for that time. The first were called, now this is what I can't pronounce, bijoutier artistes, I believe, jewelers who were artists, and artists that came from architecture, from sculpture, from painters, jewelers. So these were people who were about design. And for them, the jewelry they created was about everything Art Deco was about. So the original film also, they're taking design, taking the innovations in technology and putting that into what was incredible jewelry, and it didn't matter what it cost. You were paying for their design. Something we're trying very hard to get people to now understand at 47A, that it's all about design. So they were one set, and the other set were the jewelers. And these were well-known Parisian jewelry houses who were creating geometric designs from tightly packed, very caliber-cut precious gemstones, always colored, and they always surrounded or flanked diamonds. I mean, you have to justify your profession. So you can't suddenly say, it's okay, we'll throw away the diamonds and let's just use plastic or backlight instead. So there were these two sets of two approaches to jewelry design. And one was, the artists and the architects and the designers, and the other were the old jewelers taking the ideas and translating them into traditional stones. One of the big changes also was how diamonds were cut. And for the first time, they developed all kinds of new ways of cutting diamonds called trapeze, half moon, triangle cuts, etc., which had never been done before. I'm going to take you into some of the companies at the forefront of what was happening at Art Deco and what they were doing. So this is Cartier, always considered by many to be, this was their golden era, the Art Deco era they consider their best. And they employed the finest designers, craftsmen, of course, royalty, film stars, everybody knew Cartier. And the two of the most important things they did post the First World War, one is this tank series of watches, and the other is the Tutti Frutti. And this came from India, the idea of the colors. So the mixture of colors, which is, this jewelry is actually called Tutti Frutti. And I just thought it was unbelievable that it really looked like that horrible ice cream that we used to have as children. And then this beautiful necklace in such detail, and just quite, I think, quite marvelous. The next company was Van Cleef & Arpels, and they were a result of them. I mean, I loved reading about this, how this company came from Van Cleef and Estelle Arpels, and they started it, and then Estelle's brother Charles joined, and then later the daughter, etc., etc. But they had some of the most exquisite work, and they really were the people who started the whole idea of the magical or the hidden settings. The daughter from this company was Renée Poussin. I don't know if I'm getting her name right, but she was the daughter, and she and her partner, they produced jewels that nobody else did at that time. And they were known for, for the quality of how they were doing things that hadn't been done before. I mean, imagine all this being hand done and hand set. It looks like it's brilliantly machine made, but it's brilliantly handmade. And that was one of their most famous things. No, it's like a powder case, a little vanity powder case. Yeah. And this was Janicic, well known for, I'm sorry, I got that wrong. The powder case was Janicic. Let me go back. This was Janicic, well known for their powder compacts. And that company stayed completely family held until they decided in the 60s they would shut down and not change anything they were doing. This is Raymond Templar, the artist in the family, in jewelers. They believed that everything had to be flawlessly crafted, impeccable. So you can see that from the style in which they worked. And this is very important because this is Georges Fouquet, and this particular, he was the head of the jewelry section of the big 1925 exposition, and this piece was the one that was used at the exposition as a reminder or as an example of what they wanted to do. This emerald, onyx, and diamond pendant was specially created, and what they wanted were works of new inspiration, trying to show how from then on Art Deco was going to do different. This is Ostertag, and I love their work because there's so much Indian influence in it. You know, just taking the Indian idiom and making it a lot more exciting. And so I wanted to show another. To me, that looks so much like, you know, like the Nagapattam from Kerala, but just done differently. And then the last of the great houses was René Bouvon. Few customers really understood his very, very avant-garde jewelry, and so he created only to order. And there were only people who went to him to ask for what they wanted. So these are the big names that really, what should I say, revolutionized what jewelry was. And I wanted to show you a few bits of jewelry from 3 different people that are at our show. This is a company called Beg, Borrow and Steal. All of these are vintage pieces, so they go all over the place to find them. The big thing was clip-on earrings at the time, so these are all made in metal, bakelite, all kind enamel. The necklace, which has enamel as well. You can see this in the afternoon when you're there. This is Hanut Singh, who really does some of the finest jewelry in India today, of a totally different kind. Hanut comes very much from the world of being an artist or a designer. He has in this collection used a fair bit of diamonds, but much more is what he's trying to do with design. And this is a whole Art Deco inspired collection. And then completely different is Roma Narsinghani, a young designer who's worked with brass that's coated with 18 karat gold and created things including, I love that little thing that's for a bun, that is just done in the very architectural and structural style of Art Deco. So I think the best thing that you can do is to actually come and have a look at the jewelry, get some of it, or just, I think, live the 20s life, which really is the best.